The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Kalsh. You make real money predicting sports. Kalsh is available in every state. You also get $20 for free when you sign up with the promo code SGPN. That's Kalshi, promo code SGPN. And welcome, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Currently Saturday night, February 7th, around 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Rosso Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the preview of the final in Montpellier between Felix and Mannarino. So we're going to break down that match in a few minutes. Before we get into the actual recap of the semis first, a reminder, support the show by liking and subscribing on YouTube. And a reminder, podcast can also be found on Spotify or Apple. So if you listen to it audio only, leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. YouTube, like and subscribe to the channel. Plus, a reminder, we also have an SGPN app free to download in the App Store. So if you want to get access to all of our picks and podcasts in one easy location, download the SGPN app for free in the App Store. Plus, a reminder, Super Bowl is coming up, of course, tomorrow. And if you want to get some picks for the game, the Sports Gambling Podcast giving out 60 bets for Super Bowl 60. So once again, a bunch of props, bunch of options for you. Check out the Sports Gambling Podcast for all of the Super Bowl coverage. And last but not least, check out the merch store, SGPN website. A lot of great tennis merch, sweatshirts, t-shirts, mugs. We also have hats now, different colors. Think you'll like the options that we actually have. So check out the merch store for Tennis Gambling Podcast merch. So starting off with the actual recap of what happened in the semis in Montpellier on Saturday. Ended up splitting the lock and dog picks. Did win the lock, though. We had damn first set money line at -140. Never in doubt. Ended up burying Mannarino 6-1 in the first set. Fell apart after that because Mannarino came back and won the match, but not our problem, as Dam got the job done as he won the first set handily. For the dog, bit of a heartbreaker. We had Felix and Drogat first 6 games, 3-3 at +125. It was tied 2-2, and Drogat got broken. So, unfortunately, we needed one more hold from Drogat. He didn't get it. And then, of course, he ended up holding for about an hour straight after that. But either way, can't really complain too much for a bad beat, because in order to actually get to the second Drogat hold, he fought off 5 break points. So I guess, you know what, it balanced itself out. He was struggling a bit early. Then he settled in, and once again, he held serve for a full set and a half straight. But either way, picked up a loss there with the dog. Still like the value, just did not work out. So once again, decent episode, not too great, not too terrible. And we'll try to sweep here for the final match in Montpellier. So recapping what happened in the semis, we had a couple of competitive matches, at least in terms of sets. So Mannarino and Dam ended up having a really surprising twist midway through, because Dam won the first set 6-1. You figured Mannarino might be cooked after having back-to-back 3-setters in the previous 2 rounds. Then he flipped the script and was able to use the energy of the home country crowd in France, and he was able to come back and beat Dam in 3. Nice comeback, though, by Mannarino, as he was getting cooked early in the match, and he was able to fight off 2 break points while serving for the match in the third set. Got the job done, as he ended up winning 6-4 in the final set. As for Dam, good run for him in general as a qualifier. I know that he's still a young player. Felt like he missed an opportunity to, once again, jump into his first ever ATP final. But either way, good run nonetheless through qualifying. And Mannarino just wore him down as the match went on. As for the other match, had another 3-setter as Felix ended up beating Drogat in 3 sets. Said a second ago that Felix was able to break early in the first set. He coasted from there in the first set because his serve was too good. And then, of course, Drogat ended up showcasing his tiebreak skills. The serve woke up, and you saw 0 breaks in the entire second set. And Drogat got the job done, courtesy of a nice lob to give himself the mini break. And he was able to serve out the tiebreak. And then he ran out of gas completely, and Felix buried him in the third set 6-1. So 2 competitive matches, at least with some drama going into the third set. Mannarino and Dam did have drama also in the third set. The Felix match really didn't. Drogat had a chance to break early in the third set. I believe he had a 15-40. Did not convert, double faulted to give up the break right after, and then he mentally checked out. So Felix buried him in the last, I'd say, 15 minutes of the match, but still fun nonetheless. A lot of, I'd say, entertainment, and hopefully that carries over into the final on Sunday. Now, a reminder for the actual outrights for the event. We already have action for the final, because even though most of the outrights did not look good early in the event for us, we do have our saving grace. Felix, who is defending champion, to win the title at 5-1. Still alive, of course. He's a massive favorite in the final. I'll mention that in a second. But if you ended up back in the outrights, you got a great number on Felix, so keep that in mind. We might be able to add to our outright collection in 2026 if Felix gets the job done here on Sunday. But we already have action. You should too, so keep that in mind. We are in good shape, knock on wood, to get another outright winner. Now, moving on into some other, I'd say, news or matches that happened across the tennis landscape. A lot of Davis Cup action. A nice win by Quinn as he was able to come back and beat Morozin in a crazy third set breaker, 13-11. You had a couple of surprises, but to be honest, it's a little bit too early for me to care about Davis Cup action. I'll mention the women's stuff, though, because we had a couple of women's finals in Abu Dhabi, in Romania, and also in Czech. So Bolter ended up beating Korpach in 3 sets in Czech. Lost the first set and then buried Korpach 6-2, 6-1 in the final 2. So a nice win there for Miss de Minaur. Besides that, though, in Romania, you saw Raducanu make it to a final, trying to win her second ever WTA title. Of course, the first being the U.S. Open. And she got buried because Cristea absolutely curb stomped her in her home country. 6-0, 6-2. Ouch. Raducanu got buried, and once again, her second title will have to wait. And last but not least, you saw a nice run by the qualifier as Bajlik ended up beating Alexandrova in straight sets. A nice win there as she was a 2-1 dog. So not too much drama. Once again, there was only one 3-setter, and Bolter did end up burying her opponent in the final 2 sets. But either way, Raducanu losing in a final while only winning 2 games feels very on brand. So there you go. That's what happened. But either way, once again, point is ended up having a pretty interesting day of tennis on the women's side. A couple upsets there, and Raducanu ended up losing. So either way, that was the, of course, main match to focus on. And it sucked because Raducanu only won 2 games. That's basically it. That's all I have to really talk about for the tennis. Once again, Davis Cup, there was a bunch of action. A couple of matches had to be called early, or at least suspended because of darkness. So keep that in mind. A couple of matches are deep in the 3rd set, but they could not finish, so they will have to resume tomorrow. But either way, point is nothing else to really add in terms of the events and the overall results on Saturday. Anyways, going to wrap it up for the semis. Time to move on into the preview of the final in Montpellier between Felix and Mannarino. So before we get into the preview of the final, a reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, Kalshi. So make real money predictions, and you can do so because it's a legal prediction market available in every state. So Kalshi gives you a ton of trading options for the big game for sides, totals, props, halftime performance, and all that fun stuff. National anthem too. Besides sports, they also have markets for politics, entertainment, and even the weather. And a reminder that you could also check out the great sign-up deal that we have with Kalshi. New customers get $20 when they sign up with the code SGPN. That's Kalshi, Kalshi, code SGPN for a free $20 at sign up at Kalshi. We're also brought to you by Rebet, the #1 social sports book and casino out there, available in 35 plus states, including Texas and California. Get on the action with Rebet, and a reminder that if you do end up signing up with the code SGPN, get 100% purchase match up to $100. So once again, get a great sign-up deal if you use the code SGPN at sign-up at Rebet. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the recap of the semis in Montpellier. Time to move on into the preview of the final between Felix and Mannarino. So Mannarino being here is pretty funny because he had lost 11 straight matches entering the event, and then Mannarino flipped the script and he was able to reach a final. So either way, good for him, win or lose. I believe it's his first final appearance since 2023, so completely unexpected. That is the Cinderella run. We saw one last year from Kovacevic. This year it is Mannarino. We'll see if this time around the long shot can beat Felix in the final, because of course Kovacevic did lose last year in 3 sets. Now for this one, Felix massive favorite, -560. Mannarino is around 4-1. For the over-under, I see 20.5. I see a lot of juice on the over, so we'll say 21.5. because the price is a little bit more even. 21.5, the over is -120, and the under 21.5 is -105. For the game spread, -4.5 for Felix, +4.5 for Mannarino. Basically the same juice on both sides. For the actual set spread, I see Felix anywhere between minus 180 and like minus 155 to win in straight sets. I see Mannarino to win a set at plus 133. The over 2.5 sets is plus 195. For team totals, Felix over 12.5 is minus 150. Under is plus 115. For Mannarino, I see 9.5. The under is minus 121. And the over is minus 108. So for the actual history, they faced off a couple of times, and we've seen different results. Faced off on hard court in 2023, and Mannarino actually beat Felix in straight sets. Faced off 2 years ago on clay in Madrid, and Felix buried Mannarino. Of course, we know Mannarino is a horrific clay tennis player, so not exactly much to read into from that match, but either way, the point is they faced off a couple of times, and we have seen both players split the two meetings. Now, Felix has been dominant so far in the event. We, of course, remember that he won the title last year, so he's very comfortable in Montpellier. So far in this iteration, beat Wawrinka in straight sets, beat Fils in straight sets, and did drop a set to Drogic. Had a chance there late in the second set, though, with a break point. But either way, he did not get broken in the entire match because he's been serving out of his mind, and we'll see if he can keep that rolling here in the final on Sunday. For Mannarino, it's been the opposite because he's had a couple of wars. So he beat Martinez in straight sets in the first round, then lost the first set to Humbert, came back and won in 3, lost the first set to Gia, came back and won in 3, and lost the first set to Dam, and what do you know, came back and won in 3. So Mannarino's been a very slow starter so far in the matches, and that's why we did take Dam first set money line as the lock for the last episode. The point is, though, we know Mannarino has a unique play style with the flatness and the consistency of his strokes, and it has been bothering the opposition. Now, we'll see if Felix is going to feel the effects of that or if his firepower will just be too much for Mannarino to handle, and you might see Felix just overpower him over the course of what could be 2 straightforward sets. Now, Felix said before, defending champion, he has been rolling so far in this event this year and last year. He's won 7 straight matches at this event, and 5 of those wins were in straight sets. So historically, he has been quite dominant here. I once again acknowledge that Droga did steal. I'll use the word steal the second set because I did think that Felix was outplaying him for almost the entirety of the set, and he did have a 30-40 break point in the 4-4 game, so he almost had a chance to actually serve it out to win in straight sets, did not convert. But 20 aces and 0 double faults kind of speaks for itself. He's just serving out of his mind, and I do think that Mannarino should struggle to combat that. Now, we know that Mannarino does love to use the, I'd say, redirect strategy when it comes to returning, and he might try to use Felix's firepower against him. But Felix on indoor hard courts is a top 5 player in the world. He's an absolute indoor hard court demon. Now, I understand that Mannarino has played well so far in the event, and yes, I know that Humbert is a dangerous player in indoor hard court. Then again, Martinez, we know, is a clay specialist. Gia is a bit of an unknown, and Dam was a qualifier who made it all the way to the semis. Yes, he was in phenomenal form, not trying to fully dismiss what Dam did to get to that point. But I will point out that Felix is easily the best indoor hardcore player that he's going to face in the event, and I do think that Felix will be too much for Mannarino to handle. You could argue that maybe with Felix's recent struggles against lefties, he has not been horrible, but he's not been dominant. So I do think Mannarino can maybe find a way to steal a set. We saw Drogic do the same thing. The problem is Drogic only won the set because he can also serve bombs, and Mannarino really can't do that. Mannarino is going to rely a lot on the slice serve out wide, so maybe you could argue that will push Felix off the court, which can open the opportunity for a nice serve +1 for some winners. But I think Felix will be holding much more easily by comparison. I think Mannarino maybe makes one set close, but I think that Felix is too good on these courts. Yes, the crowd will be in favor of Mannarino because he is the local Frenchman, but Felix right now, I really can't pick against him unless he's against elite talent on indoor hard courts. I think that he's just too good. I think his firepower will really push Mannarino around the court, and I do think Felix will come forward when needed. And I do think that Mannarino, with his, I'd say, average at best serve, should have a couple of really difficult holds, or at least difficult games that he's going to have to hold in. And I'm skeptical if he'll be able to withstand that much pressure. Now, Felix will hand over some free points, courtesy of missed second serve returns, etc. But still, I think he's proven time and time again in this environment, you just shouldn't pick against him. in Montpellier. Now, a reminder, we already have him at 5-1 to win the event, so no reason to double up at about minus 600. But still, the point is we picked him for a reason pre-tournament. It's because he's great here. He's great on indoor hard courts in general, and I thought the field was relatively weak, at least by comparison. And I do think that Felix will have a pretty solid recipe for success in this match. You're looking at Felix, who was able to beat Wawrinka, who has played pretty well so far this season. For example, he did beat Gia, who Mannarino did beat in 3 sets, as he beat him in the Aussie Open. Fils, we know, can be dangerous. Yes, I know he was on a back-to-back, so we were skeptical of Fils in that actual spot, and he got buried, but Fils is still a tough player to play. And Droget is a good server who has been undefeated in tie breaks for a while, so Felix dropping a set there is not too bad. But I do think the last 2 matches are important against Fils and Droget because they were both Frenchmen. So he has already experienced the hostile crowd being against him, and he has been able to get by it. I think he'll get by it again. For my prediction, I have Felix in straight sets. I want to make an argument for Mannarino because it's more fun that way. If you want to pick the crafty, unique lefty to just find a way to survive against Felix, but I really just don't see that happening. I think you might end up getting to a breaker because we have seen so many tie breaks in the event, and the event's played out the way that I thought it would, which is a lot of powerful serving, not many breaks, and a bunch of tie breaks. And we've gotten that exact script for almost every match so far in the event. I think picking against the tie break is dangerous in general, but I do think Mannarino can do enough to survive and maybe force a breaker. But I think Felix is just too good right now in terms of the serve, the forehand, all the weapons that he has. The firepower is just very noticeable, and I do think Mannarino, who is able to keep Dam off balance just based on the uniqueness of his style of play. Felix has seen it before, and Felix, of course, has been in the spot before. Dam had not, so you could argue nerves played a factor. But I think Felix wins. I think he wins going away, at least early. I think Mannarino will settle in, and I think he'll be able to make at least one set competitive. But I think 2-0 is probably the approach here for Felix. I'll back the defending champion, who's been unbeatable on these courts. I'll pick him to win this one in straight sets. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the preview in Montpellier. For the final, time to move on into the lock and dog picks. Before we get into the lock and dog, a reminder that brought to you by our sponsor, which is Open Occitanie Fantasy. They've covered for the big game. A reminder that is tomorrow. Choose a player, reveal whether you've unlocked the gimme pick, followed by a boost builder tied to the big game. Underdog celebrating by hooking players up with bigger boosts. Submit just a single boosted entry to unlock an even bigger boost on the next one, all the way up to 60%. And a reminder, if you're new to the platform, great sign-up deal that is brand new for new customers. Play just $5, 75 bucks bonus funds. We sign the promo code SGPN at Underdog Fantasy. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. They've been great this whole season, especially on props. Check them out for the Super Bowl, sides, totals, props. So once again, check out Rhythm there. They have models as well for other sports like golf and, like, for example, college basketball. And a reminder that if you want to go premium with your membership, use the code SGPN25 when you download the app, and you'll get a nice quarter for first month. That's Rhythm, RATHMM, code SGPN25 for a quarter first month at Rhythm. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the preview of the final in Montpellier. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. For the lock, going to be a bit juicy, but I still like it. I will go with Felix in straight sets at minus 155. Simply put, I think he's just significantly better than Mannarino, and I wonder about fatigue. Mannarino's a bit up there in years. Having 3 straight 3-setters is not exactly a great spot to transition into facing off against the best server in the entire field. Felix has been great. He's won 7 straight matches here, including last year. 5 of those 7 wins were in straight sets. You're looking at Mannarino, though, who has not really served well recently. He served well enough to get by, but he has been broken 2 times in 2 straight matches, and Felix, by comparison, including last year, has faced a grand total of 12 break points in his last 7 matches in this event. So Felix has really just been serving well. He has not been broken in 2 straight matches. Think he will hold more easily than Mannarino. I think Mannarino will struggle when it comes to holding in a couple of spots in a set or 2, and I think that that's the only opening that Felix will need. There's a chance that Felix does not get broken again, and Mannarino has extra pressure to hold serve. I don't think he'll be able to do that regularly, so I am going to go with a couple of breaks in favor of Felix Think he'll end up winning this one in straight sets. It's juicy, but I like it. Give me minus 155 as my lock once again for Felix in straight sets for the show. For the dog, I'm going to go with a double down on Felix. I am going to pick his money line with the over 20.5 games at plus 125. That is on Bet365. Now, it sounds a bit contradictory because I am picking Felix to win in straight sets and the over. Then again, 20.5 for a tournament that's had so many tie breaks, I do think is a pretty decent number. Mannarino has been involved in a bunch of long sets, or a bunch of long matches, as he has had 3 straight matches that did not end in straight sets. You've seen 4 of Felix's last 5 matches, though, in this event have gone over as well. We saw against Droget, there was a breaker there, too. So even if he did win in straight sets, still would have went over. Point is, though, we have seen a bunch of breakers. I will point out that Felix's team total in this match is 12.5. The over is minus 155. So if Felix is going to go over this team total, I have to feel pretty good about the actual chances of getting to 21 games in this one. But I think you're looking at, once again, a pretty good spot for Felix and for Mannarino to have at least one competitive set, which drags the match over this number, and Felix still wins. So I like the combo there, but once again, it's a good pivot off of the team total at minus 155, and you have seen a couple of long matches for Felix, who has had 4 of the last 5 matches here go over this number, and Mannarino's had 3 straight that have not ended in straight sets. I see at least one close set, good enough for me, but give me the same game parlay as my dog for the show. So once again, the lock and dog, the lock's going to be on Felix in straight sets at minus 155 against Mannarino. So once again, Felix 2-0, minus 155. And for the dog, I'm going to go with the same game parlay, Felix and Mannarino over 20.5 games, parlayed with Felix money line at plus 125. That's on Bet365. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for Montpellier. A bunch of events coming up next week. So we have a blend, actually, between hardcourt and clay. We have Buenos Aires, which, of course, is the clay. We have Dallas, and we have Rotterdam. So strap in. We have 3 events to preview. Should be a very long preview episode next time around, but check it out. A reminder, support the show. Like, subscribe on YouTube, leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple, and find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Till next